And here we are. Welcome to another episode of Hobie Bass Open. We're experiencing a little bit of difficulties with some of the guys' internet connections. We do have some very good ones between myself, Drew, Eric Sadiqui, and occasionally Jody Queen. And we'll find out if AJ is online. And AJ, are you with us? It doesn't sound like he's with us, so we're going to have to wing this for sure. Just a quick intro from everybody there. Drew, tell us where you're from, and part of the reason we got a lot of people from all over the world watching this, and they're trying to find out where everything is. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you're from.
Sure. So I pretty much, this is a little bit longer than it should be, but I was born in Tennessee when I was young, and that's where I really cut my teeth wading rivers and creeks with my dad. And then ended up moving to Atlanta when I was about 8 or 9, and then ended up, pretty much growing up there, and went to college back in Tennessee, lived in South Carolina for 4 years, North Carolina for about 10, and Charlotte. I made the whole Southeast tour, and now, everybody, I live in Northeast Ohio. So just moved there here about, a couple months ago. Well, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, really. So that's where I am now. So.
Sounds really, really fantastic. We'll see if we still got Jody Queen online. He's gone into the house, out of the house a few times. We got some fantastic light. Jody, you with us?
Yeah, the light is burning a hole in my brain, man.
That's all right. Tell us a little bit about Jody.
Man, I live in Bluefield, West Virginia now. I'm originally from West Virginia, a little town called Wayne, West Virginia, and I started kayak fishing about 5 years ago, and just I haven't looked back since, man. I've always wanted to do it competitively, and when these companies started coming out with these great kayaks, and it made it all possible for me. So that's why I'm here today. I've decided to pursue that dream and haven't looked back.
Sounds really good. Someone who's also a very familiar face in the tournament scene in the United States, and we've seen him at some Hobie Fishing World Championship. Aaron Sadiqui, how are you, sir?
Hey, Mr.
I'm good. How are you?
Good, mate. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm from Cincinnati, Ohio, and I've been fishing since I was a kid. I didn't fish a lot around Cincinnati, but my mom's family was from Corinth, Mississippi, so I used to go down there and fish uncle's ponds, and I ended up just falling in love with fishing, and I would get dropped off at Pickwick, and I'd go buy new baits all the time and kind of just taught myself, and it kind of just went from there. And when kayaks came out, it just gave me a new way to fish and get out on the water and hit spots I've always wanted to hit, walk around bank fishing like I did growing up. So that really changed things for me, and I was able to get out there and start doing things, fishing deep, learning how to use a fish finder, all that stuff. And I've worked hard doing it. There's really no substitute for time on the water, and I've spent a lot of time on the water the last 5-6 years. So it started to pay off.
Sounds good. It's one of the key things, no matter where you're talking the powerboat guys or you guys that are fishing saltwater and IFK and stuff. It's just that time on the water, and you guys are putting some big miles in. Now, this weekend, you had Lake Dardanelle. Now, very good entry on that. I don't have the stats in here. AJ was going to run this. You had, I think, 120 some odd anglers in this one?
I think 112.
112. Big field. We'll start off with let me just click this one here. Drew, now, obviously, you've taken first place in this particular event. Is this your first win for this season in the Hobie Bass Open Series?
Yeah, this is my first win for this season, but I've only fished 2. So I got a fourth on the Susquehanna River, and Jody took that one. So, but yeah, I can't complain so far. A couple good events. I'm gonna try to get a third one, see if I can't get in the mix a little bit with Siddiqui and Russ and Jody and Cody. Ron Champion, whoever else is going to be up there pretty good in those AOY standings. So we'll see what happens at Coosa.
There's some big names in there. Now, you told me earlier you had a balloon behind you, but it had a number 1 on there. Now, what was all that about?
Well, when I got home, my wife, she's so sweet, Christina, she had all these balloons for me, and there was a big balloon number 1, like you would buy for a kid for his first birthday or whatever. It was just a big gold number 1. And my little boy, he's about 2.5 years old. He took it and was playing with it. And my dog, Lou, she just crushed it and just destroyed it. So I got these balloons still. They're here, and it was a sweet card. It was a great way to come home. I just got home maybe a few hours ago and just had time to cut the grass, change a few diapers, and here I am.
On the diaper patrol. That's all right. Yeah. Now, Jody, I don't see any balloons with you, Jody. What's going on there?
I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I didn't see any balloons behind you.
Yeah, I sucked all the helium out of them in a little rage park there.
That sounds good. Hey, we're going to start with you, Jody, on this one. Now, day 1 to day 2, were there any tactical changes where you fish, deep, shallow? Did you have the same pattern both days, or did you switch it up due to the wind conditions or actually the bite on that particular weekend?
Yeah, no, it was totally different from day 1 to day 2 for me. I was fishing in an area that had very little current to begin with. And, I was fishing a small creek mouth and up into the creek on day 1. And I had a little bit of current in the creek, and that helped me out a lot because some bait had pushed up in there. And I had some wind that had been blowing that bait fish in that area too. So the fish were a lot easier to find on day 1 for me, and I got up in there and limited out fairly quick, and I came back out to another spot that I found during pre-fishing. It was a small bank with some laydowns on it, and I upgraded there, and just the wind picked up real good, and I started fishing some points with a Z-Man jackhammer, and it fell my way pretty good. But now day 2, when I got out, there was no wind, there was no current. It was totally different. The jackhammer was just that point was new. It wasn't doing anything. And threw a buzz bait, didn't know on it early morning just before daylight, and so I just went to a Mag Patty Z worm and started working those laydowns that I caught fish on earlier the previous day, and started producing a few small fish, and started to go up into the creek, and I had about a lot of boat traffic. There was 3 bass boats blew by me and went up into my creek, and so I just turned around and left there. Had to make a lot of adjustments, but luckily, I mean, we had a little bit of wind pickup around noon, and I noticed that a little bit of current started happening, and so I made a long run back out to the mouth of the creek that I was fishing. About a mile run, and I was about 100 yards from ramp, and I did some great upgrades in that area. Just luckily, the current positioned those fish, and I was able to get on them, because if I hadn't, it would have, I wouldn't have been able to pull this tournament out.
That sounds really good. What were your top, say, 3 go-to baits on both days? What was your top 3?
I didn't have 3; I had 2.
2, okay. Top 2 then.
Yeah. On day 1, I mean, I threw a jackhammer and a Mag Fatty Z, which is a pretty good size. It's a good beefy floating worm by Z-Man. I had it pegged with a bobber stop and used throwing a quarter and the 5/16, and just throwing it into some heavy laydowns and heavy brush anywhere I could get around a stump or anything that was so far back against the bank that the bass boats couldn't reach it. I mean, that's where I was throwing. The other bait that I used on day 1 was Z-Man jackhammer, and I was tipping it with a little different trailer this time. I was using the Minnows, which has a round paddle tail on it, and what I was trying to do was keep that bait really high up in the water column, and I was actually able to do that with a 3/8 ounce in that particular trailer, because there was so much water resistance that it would keep it up. I could almost use it as a wake bait and still run it real slow just below the surface, and that was key, and it paid off for me. But like I say, on day 2, there was just no wind, and everybody knows, get a little wind and the chatterbait does great. But man, when it's dead calm, it can be a tough bite. But on 2, I just threw that Mag Fatty Z all day. I never used another bait. I only took 3 rods with me on day 2.
What was the average water depth that you were fishing this particular weekend?
I'd say average between 15 inches and 3 feet.
Okay. And did you have a reading on the water temperature on the day there, on both days? Did it change between the 2 days?
Yeah, it stayed pretty steady. Once the sun got up, it stayed pretty steady, about 84 to 86 degrees where I was at.
Sounds good. Well done. All right, Garrett, you're on the spot now. You got a nice little paycheck, and you had a good result on this one. You've had a couple of rounds. You've done very, very well in this one. Tell us a little bit about your weekend, day 1, day 2. What did you change, if you did anything at all? And a little bit, where you fished, what did you target? And if you made changes, why did you make those changes?
Yeah, I ended up fishing the intake for a power plant. There's a lot of current in there, and I pulled in, and first thing in the morning, I just started throwing an accent buzzbait, and I ended up catching a 19.5 on it. And in practice, that was really what I caught most of my fish on. And I wasn't sure if I, tried some different things, if I would actually be able to catch 5. So I ended up making the decision just to throw the buzzbait all day. And so I, stayed in there, caught a few. I ended up leaving and moving to another spot for the last 2 hours of the day. It was a spot I knew I could finish a limit out and potentially get some bigger fish. So I went in there and finished out my limit on the first day. And day 2, I knew there was going to be less wind, so I ended up going with a smaller buzzbait most of the day, and was able to get a limit on that. I did the same thing day 2 I did day 1. Started in that pipe. I didn't get a big one in the morning like I did the first day, but I just kept grinding. I ended up switching to the other spot the last 2 hours again, and I managed to find those bigger fish in there. Toward the end of the day, when the wind picked up, I switched back to that big buzzbait, and I caught a 19 and 19.5 in the last maybe 30 minutes. So that's what ended up making the difference.
That sounds good. We get a lot of questions all the time. You get a lot of guys, say down in Australia, in the South Pacific, all using finesse fishing, light tackle lines and stuff. What lines, braids and leaders, or straight through fluoro? What weights were you guys using?
I'll go. I guess I was using 30-pound Cortland Master Braid in the moss green color, and yeah, I just pretty much stuck with that on 3 bait casters like Jody. I just had 3 rods and was going straight braid with every one of my baits. So, and I can talk about those later. But what about you guys? What line and weight were y'all using?
The only thing I use pretty much, unless I'm throwing top water like a frog or a buzzbait, is I'm a straight fluorocarbon guy. I'm throwing 20-pound Vanish on a 7-3-1 Lose Tournament Pro, and 17-pound for the jackhammer and the Vanish. And I mean that's all I throw.
Eric?
I was throwing straight fluorocarbon. On the smaller buzzbait, I threw 16-pound Sunline, and then on the bigger one, I threw 20-pound.
Sounds good. All right, Drew, you took out the event this weekend, and I looked at the paycheck. What are you going to do with all the money?
Pay off some bills, man. I got a wife and a 2.5-year-old, and just moved and all kinds of stuff to pay off, man. So
all right, the same thing.
Nothing fancy.
Same thing. Tell us about day 1, a bit more detail, and then also day 2, if there are any traits and stuff, and walk us through, your approach. Did you do a pre-fish for like a lot of the other guys did as well?
I did. You know what? I'll tell you what I do. I'll go and I've learned this from several different tournaments. Actually, one of the ones I learned it from was when I actually got second to Jody down in the KBF Pro Tour Claremont chain earlier this year. I found a good spot. I didn't have enough time to pre-fish and look at all the access points because I put in at one of the first places I went to, because if you arrive at any location, it all looks fishy. So most people just drop in right away and just start fishing. The second you do that, you're not getting out for a while. You're going to just keep fishing because we love to fish. I promised myself I'm not getting out of this, not getting out of my or getting into my kayak for about a day and a half until I see every single access point in this place, because that's when you truly know what is different, what's special, the proper environment and ecosystem that holds big fish, as long as you know what those factors are. If you think about it like buying a house, you don't know what's a good deal in that area. If you move to a new area and you're renting for the time being, you don't know what a good deal on a house is until you're there for a month or two and you see every single house that goes on the market. And then when one pops up immediately, you know exactly it's a good deal based on the price and the square foot, the acreage. You don't know what's good until you see it all in a place. And see, I don't mean you got to get in your kayak. I just mean you got to drive around and see it all. So that's what I did. And then I learned where eventually I did put in. I had a couple of days to pre-fish. And I did put in, found a place where I can catch some keepers, some I'd say 14 to 16-inch fish. And I felt pretty confident I could get a limit. So that's what I did on day 1. I went there and then I got my limit. And then I pre-fished another spot that I'd found that had I caught it 20 1/4, and I stopped fishing it. It was very small and fragile. I stopped fishing it. I thought there could be more here, and I'm not really going to know until tournament day. So I went there on the second half of tournament day, left myself about 3 hours to fish it, and I caught a 18 1/4, and then I knew that they were there obviously, and then I was just hoping there'd be more, and there was a 21 there as well, which ended up being big bass, and it was the craziest story. And I know that at the live results, if anyone was watching it, the air conditioner kicked in, and some people said the audio wasn't that great. So maybe I could retell that story now a little bit better. But this fish, there was 3 blowdowns parallel to the bank, sort of on the outside bend with some deep water, and I threw on the backside of them, a spot where a lot of people don't sneak their kayak in and throw on the backside because it's just not that easy to do. It's much easier to fish the front side. I threw a whopper plopper as far as I could and was going to run it parallel to all that wood. And the second it hit the water, this small fish just destroys it. And I'm like, oh, man, whatever, a dink. I'm skiing it in, and the fish comes off. It shakes off. And the second that whopper plopper landed by this other root ball, this 21-inch largemouth, and I could have sworn it was 25, if you know what I mean, once she hit, came out of the water completely and just annihilated this thing, and it was on. I had to fight it in with all this wood, and it's diving down, and I got treble hooks all over that bait. I'm so scared it's going to get off, and I'm just praying to God, like, please stay on. So eventually I got her in, obviously, and that ended up being big fish. But day 2, guys, it was the same thing. Went to the first spot, got the limit, and I promised myself as soon as I get a limit, I know there's not really big ones there, I got to force myself to get off the water and get to the other area to have a little bit more time there, because I knew I needed 2 kickers at least, maybe even 3. and I pretty much almost did need 3 because Eric and I tied, so he had the exact same length, but I was just fortunate. And then I got 2 kickers. I got an 18 3/4 and then a 20 1/2. So, just fortunate to come away with the win in such a close battle. And congrats to Eric, man, just unbelievable. Him getting that length and being right there neck and neck, man, just unbelievable tournament, man, really was.
Yeah, I was watching online with the obviously the Tourney X, and it was just bouncing up and down, and people were just, you can see what was going on. It was a very interesting tournament. A good result for you. Really good. Now the next event is the Coosa River Chain. Are any of you guys going to fish that?
Yes, please.
Eric?
Yeah, I think I'll be there.
And Jody? Eric, just ask you, what's Eric, tell us a little bit about the Coosa River Chain. Have you fished there before?
I fished a KBF event, I think 3 years ago there, but I ended up fishing Jordan Lake above Coosa River. I didn't fish the actual river, so I don't know if I've been on any of the water that is going to be in play for this one.
What about you, Jody? Have you fished this arena before?
I never have, no.
Drew?
Well, I named a kayak after it once, but I have fished a little bit, not too much. I fished I've just fished some of the main river, but not, I can't remember, not very often actually. So I'm gonna have to get there and explore like everybody else. And there's a couple lakes and bounds and some main river, and it's going to be just a fun, crazy event. And there's a lot of big spotted bass there. We fished, not these 2 particular bodies of water, but like Eric said, the bass, bass kayak nation series. We were there earlier this year on, what was it? Logan Martin. We were there in that system, but they all fish fairly similar. So I think we can sort of hopefully draw back some of our experiences.
That sounds good. I tell you what, I saw some of the footage that AJ put up, in between while you guys out fishing of the actual fishing arena in your launch area there. I've never seen such a dedicated building, facilities, and PA systems, and chairs for an audience, and boat ramps. What a spectacular venue to run, fishing events for. Obviously, very popular with the powerboat guys because you got these large weigh-in tubs there as well. But what an amazing location! And I heard the people in the town were just fantastic. Just a nice group of people that just really enjoy their fishing in town.
Absolutely, yeah. You talking about Arkansas or Coosa?
Coosa and also Arkansas.
Yeah.
Arkansas was fantastic there.
You talking about Alabama, dude? They take their fishing seriously. You know what I mean? Like, I don't doubt that for sure. That's going to be a good event. Arkansas is the same way. Lake Dardanelle State Park. They don't mess around in those 2 states when it comes to their bass fishing. So I'm not surprised. Hopefully, Eric and Jody and I, we can get on that stage too.
That sounds good. Now, are all of you guys qualified for the Tournament of Champions so far?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hang on, Jody's.
I read his mouth. He said, "I am qualified, but I'm going to finish dead last."
Well, he's got his microphone. He's got his microphone muted. He hit a button on his phone somewhere, so he'll have to unmute that. Unless, Drew, you can read his lips, and during this, you can say whatever you think he's saying. So this is your golden opportunity here.
Right now,
Eric Siddiqui is the greatest fisherman I've ever seen.
He's found the button again. You had your 30 seconds there, Drew. You almost had it, man.
I thought mine was spelled M-I.
Oh man, that was so good. Yeah, hey, go ahead.
Yeah, we'll be there.
Yeah, I'm POC.
I'm hoping to get a leaf pass to come up and do some media work there, some live streams and some on-water interviews.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to try to wrap things up here since everyone's kind of fallen in and out on the internet. And I know AJ was supposed to host this one, so I'm going to throw him kind of blind, which is good. Hey, one of the questions that just came through on some of the Facebook stuff here is a lot of places, say Australia, for instance, we have one start location and one finishing location for a big crowd. What's your guys' view on that from, I guess, a promotional point of view, is why we also do it. But you guys seem to launch wherever that arena is. Eric, what's your thoughts on the two different styles there?
So what were you saying? You guys start?
Well, like you saw at the Worlds and a lot of the stuff we do in Australia, we have a starting line, we have a countdown, a whole group together. There's that bit of a buzz, everyone going. And the other style is what you guys are doing, is where you can launch wherever you want. They both are unique, and I'm not criticizing one over the other one, but we just had one of the questions on Facebook. And your thoughts on both styles of tournaments?
Well, I will say it's nice to be able to, start on the spot you want to, so if you could launch anywhere, you could usually get to where you want to be before the tournament starts.
Of course.
So that's definitely nice, but I had a lot of fun doing the shotgun start, and it was fun seeing all the guys, tussle around trying to get position. Watching Tim Percy bust his drive and say it was just a raw Canadian power that the drive can handle it. So that's a lot of fun too. So I'm down for whatever.
Yeah, that sounds good. And Jody, what's your thoughts on shotgun starts versus wherever you want to fish? I know there's the fishing side, but there's also the sports side of letting our sponsors and people see it. What's your thoughts on it, Jody? If he's got internet connection.
Well, if you'd have been at my ramp on
We've lost him, Drew. What's your thoughts on the whole thing? Shotgun versus wherever you want to start.
Well, personally, for the anglers and to really have the best chance to catch the most fish and take advantage of what the kayaks can do, I just prefer we launch in, all the different places. We launching at one spot for a bass boat tournament. Obviously, they have outboards. They can go wherever they want all over the whole lake. So, that makes sense for them, but they're still going everywhere. And we also have outboards, and it's the most important outboard really to make this thing go in the future of our sport. And it's called a truck or an SUV. That's our outboard, and we need those companies to be a part of this to really grow it. So I think it's exciting that, I got my Toyota Tacoma stuck in mud and it had to get winched out, and I was exploring all kinds of cool places. That's what makes kayak fishing different. That's why we got kayaks to go, do that. I was toting around this little Crescent kayak. It's an ultralight. It's a little 10-foot small kayak, and putting it in and out and doing that kind of stuff in those vehicles. It just creates a whole other dynamic that you do not get as a viewer. I say viewer, meaning one day when this is on TV, that's what's going to make it different, separate it, and make it more exciting and different than what we already see. It to me, if we're duplicating what the bass boats are doing just on the same body of water, then why are we in kayaks? Why are we doing it? We need to be different, and that means being able to launch at different areas and drive our vehicles and get to remote places, which is the entire reason we all got into kayaks. But you can still do the offshore stuff. You can still pull off an Eric Siddiqui. Jody's good at it. Jackson Orr, I'm super impressed with him. He's always doing good offshore stuff. Cody is a genius with it and a wizard. You can still do that, but you can still do the other stuff. So it's really cool how versatile that kayak is.
Yeah, I think part of the thing is trying to grow the sport and attract sponsors. Go ahead, Jody. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying earlier, I don't know if you guys can hear me now, but, the BOS tournament at Dardanelle, there was 112 anglers in there. And some don't have a lot of launch points anyway. So, if you were at my launch that morning, it looked like a shotgun start. There was probably 10 or 15 kayaks there, and we was all waiting around for 6 o'clock. So you get on a lake that's got, 5 or 6 launches, or people aren't real familiar or aren't like Drew, who likes to drive around the lake and find the launch nobody find. They all end up at these ramps that are pretty much easy to find. So if you're launching from one of those ramps, pretty much got a crowd with you anyway. I don't see anything wrong with either one of them. If it's what you like, you can go for it. But for me, I like having the freedom of being able to go on Google Earth and find some little known ramps and explore the waters a little bit, explore around the lake a little bit. It just makes it way more interesting. I like being able to have that freedom.
Yeah, it's good. The hard part is from a dollars and cents point of view, the commercial side, to make these things happen, because the reason why you have these guys that are in one locations and have cams on there is they get airtime. Airtime sells them product, and product gives them cash. Maybe a compromise is that you go to a location like this and maybe nominate 5 start areas, in around of a lake, and say, here's your 5 starts. The strategy is just the same. You're going to choose the best of those 5. We can put cameras on all 5 and still stream it. So you're looking after the people who are writing the checks to do it. So I get both sides from the simpleness of a kayak. You're saying their motor's your car. That's fantastic. But you can't have, 100 cameras on 100 different trucks trying to broadcast logos and sponsors and things like that. So I think there's a balancing act. It's something there, but it's definitely the freedom is something that's nice. The ability to read Google Maps, to separate yourself and get on that body of water, perhaps that no one else is, to get that bite and win the tournament. They both have the same appeal. So very interesting. So that answered one of the questions we've got here came across the screen.
It is my sincere hope that this sport grows enough in the future to where we can have exactly that. Sponsors take the top 25 out of a group and say, okay, we're going to follow this guy, we're going to follow this guy, and we're going to follow this guy. And if we can take this sport to the next level, I think that eventually that'll happen. But that is where you're going to sell, is getting out on the water and finding these kayaks that are stuck back in the middle of nowhere where there's not another bass boat around. There's barely a footprint that's ever touched it. And you're getting that guy raw footage using those products. It will sell. We just have to take this sport to the next level where we can get the interest from these sponsors to money up and pony up and put that kind of money into it. It's going to be, it's a road. It's a road.
That's right.
It's a journey that we're going to all have to take. But we can do it. I'm telling you, this sport can hit those levels. We just need to participate.
You tell them, Jody. Pony up, sponsors.
Hey, I'll tell you what, they're doing a damn good job now. They're doing a good job now. The amount of money they're putting in, and like we run events in Australia where you get 100 boats, and we all use shotgun starts. And some guys have the legs, and they'll do 3 hours each way, and we get all that. In Worlds, we put the top guys around the globe in yellow kayaks so we can actually find you, so that we can film you. And that's that thing there. It's difficult. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a mutual thing between us and the sponsors. We all have to step it up. But, I've been on the road. By the time I get home, I'll be on the road for 2 months, and I haven't seen my wife. I haven't seen her. And Drew knows how this goes, and Eric knows how this goes. We all put so much into this, and for a sponsor to step up and say, "Hey, man, I really like what you're doing," it makes what we do worth what we're doing. And I love my sponsors, and I'm not downing any of them. I just hope that the sport can grow enough where we can get enough anglers and get enough interest where we can take it to the next level. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that the sponsors need to step up because they're not doing enough. I'm saying we all
right.
That sounds good. Hey, Drew, can you see the message that's on the screen there? So that was great. We have the audience here. Depends upon what feed they're actually watching this on. I'm able to click those online and then work out that. So go ahead. What did you use for the win?
Sort of like Jody, I just had 3 rods each day. On day 2, it ended up being 2 rods by the end of the day because I broke one. But I broke one on a fish, believe it or not, because it bit a chatterbait. So I was throwing a Z-Man chatterbait. I use the Project Z. I know Jody likes a jackhammer. A lot of guys do. I prefer the Project Z. And if you guys follow along with what I do a podcast, Hooked on Wild Waters. You follow, Drew Gregory Fishing on most social media. I'll get into more why I like that one on there if you follow along. But I was using the Project Z chatterbait with a diesel minnow, 4-inch diesel minnow as a trailer. And I was also using a buzzbait, a whopper plopper. Most of my big ones came on that whopper plopper. The buzzbait was catching them in pre-fishing, but I just switched to the whopper plopper in the tournament days. And then a Z-Man Streaks, a 5-inch Streaks was my follow-up. And I was using it on the chin locks hook that they make that holds that bait on there. The Elastec plastic needs the Z-Man jig heads and hooks for it to really work properly. Otherwise, it won't stay on there. I think some brands are making some now that work with it, like Mustad. They make one called the Grip Pen that does real good. But those were the ones the main baits I was using. If any fish missed chatterbait, buzzbait, whopper plopper, I'd like almost in a holster. I would have my Z-Man Streaks rod ready right there to cast it out and put it right back where that fish missed it. And a couple of those were very important. But how I broke my rod was actually when I was bringing my lure in the water, I had like this much line left. I mean, just like 12 inches, the amount of line you would leave to make a cast. And I was bringing it in, and this fish came up and bit it. It was like a 15.5 incher. So there you go. There's another what if, Eric. I mean, you know, that 15.5 incher doesn't bite right at the boat. I just was like, what the heck? I lifted up the rod, and the rod just snapped because it was like 12 inches line. It was like a 2-pounder. So anyway.
That's the way it goes. When it's your time, and everything just falls into place. That's the way it happens.
That's true. It just did, man.
You are so right about that, Eric. I've seen a lot of guys. It's all the wheels and all the planets have to align. You can have the best day and everything go right and still get in the top 5, and you've done nothing wrong. That's just fishing, and that's true with a lot of sports, but in particular fishing. I've seen a lot of guys. You know, I've watched this whole series where there's only been you're on a fish, he's on a fish. It's been back and forth, and it's just that luck, if you want to call it. But you know, you have to put yourself in that position, either on the waterway or on the day or on the baits, to put yourself in that lucky position and make it all together. That's all. You're the one throwing that lure out. That's all there is to it. So,
yeah, that's good. Excellent.
All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap things up here. We really appreciate you letting me fill in from AJ running blind. It's very, very good to talk to you guys. I'm hoping to make it to the next round. I've been invited, and then also to the tournament champions. We're going to try to bring a bit more of the media to what we're doing, to look after the sponsors that all of you guys are a revenue stream for next year and the year after. And we just got to find that balance to keep it there. But we're all on the same page. We're all doing good. But I tell you what, the sport of kayak fishing is definitely is growing without question. And that's not just in the USA and not just Australia, places like Europe and Asia and all these places, Brazil. It is all going. So we're definitely on a roll. And we look forward to catching you guys up. And maybe one of you guys will see you at Hobie Fishing Worlds. It's still scheduled for a mall. And we'll find out how that goes. But once again, thank you very much for your time. I know some of you got kids to put to sleep. And Eric, you're on the road. And I think we got you off the water, probably when the bite was just going to get good.
That's
and
right.
Jody, you've persevered all the way through between inside the house and outside the house and the bright lights and no lights. We've battled through this. We've done very well. And I'm nothing but thank you very, very much for your time and opportunity. And thank you for fishing the Hobie Bass Open Series. So with that, you guys have a great night.
Steve,
All right,
we
thanks.
appreciate
Thanks for having me on.